This is a good one, actually. I'll read you out the whole run of this. I've been low oxalate for a few years. I eat mostly meat and some low oxalate vegetables. Do you recommend Ox Bile? Okay. For those of us who are dealing with oxalate, one of the impacts that oxalate can have is that it can be taken up into the liver. What that means is that the work that the liver would normally be doing is going to be to some degree compromised. And unfortunately, oxalate takes up and competes with sulfate for take up into the liver. This can mean a lot of things, like various kinds of detox may not be working well, because although sulfation would be the direct impact, so if the liver's taking up oxalate instead of sulfate, then sulfation is obviously not going to work well. But you get overlap between the detox pathways in the liver. So there's usually more than one detox pathway that can deal with any particular substance that needs to be handled by the liver. But to the extent that sulfation is not working, any of the backup processes to sulfation will be getting a bigger load of work. And one of the things that can happen is we're not producing enough bile. And that can mean that we're not digesting our food properly, and then we're having issues with fat malabsorption. Because if you've got fatty acids and you don't have the bile to essentially coat each glob of fat as it's coming through so that it can be broken down into these fatty acids so that we can absorb it, that's when you get fat malabsorption. And for those who are not familiar with what happens at the other end of the bowel, if you have fatty or greasy stool, that's your body's not properly breaking down and digesting the fats. They're moving right through the gut instead of being bile encapsulated and then being broken down into the individual fatty acids for absorption. So ox bile can be a really helpful tool, especially if you're early in the process. When I first started the low oxalate diet, I had significant issues with digesting fat, and using some ox bile with a meal made a big difference. And then as my liver was able to do more of its own work properly, then I was able to come off it. Now, if you've been low oxalate for a few years and you're still having these problems, I would actually consider something like taurine. And the reason for that is that taurine actually provides the raw materials for the liver to be able to make bile. So taurine is one of the things that the liver can use as a component to build bile. And so that can be really helpful as well. So taurine does a lot of things in the body. It's a supplement I'd love to recommend because it's inexpensive and you're going to get all kinds of bang for the buck. The research shows that taurine protects the kidneys from the effects of oxalate. That's a nice check mark. Taurine also is something that can be turned into serotonin and melatonin. So you may get some benefits to the nervous system and to the amount of relaxation in the system. It's another good check. Taurine also acts as an antioxidant. So your body is able to say, I'm going to use you over here because I've got some oxidative stress going on. That's another good check. So between the support to the liver and the other things that taurine can do, it can be a real advantage to get a bit more of it. It does have a reputation of helping people to relax as well. I think that's the serotonin and calming neurotransmitter relationship there with taurine. So if we're going to approach something like improving digestion, I mean, why not do it with something that's going to give you more support than just fat digestion? So I kind of like when we can get multiple benefits from one supplement.